Studying Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Lord's Childhood Pastimes, text number 43 and 44. Kena Churi Karakene Maharashi Suri. Hang on, it's 42, sorry. Suni Krudahana Prabhu Garbitariana Gariata Bandachula Pelila Bangia Suni Krudahana Prabhu Garbitariana Gariate Bandachila Pelila Bangia. Oh, it's good. That's 43. So we'll just do 43, I guess. So first two lines. Suni, hearing. Kruda, angry. Hana, becoming. Prabhu, the Lord. Garbitara, within the room. Jana, going. Gari, in the room. Yata, Manda, pots. Chilla, their work. Pelila, he threw them. Bangia, breaking. Translation, thus rebuked by his mother, the Lord would go in anger to a room and break all the pots within it. Text 44. Tabi satya kole kari karail santosha. Do you want to read? Should we do that? Lajita haila prabhu janini jadosa. Tabi satya kolo kari karala santosha. Lajita haila prabhu janini jadosha.
Tabe sachi kale 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 santosha.
Tabe sachi kale 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 santosha.
Lajita ila prabhu janani dosha.
Lajita ila prabhu janani dosha. Tabe sachi kale 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 santosha. Tabe sachi kale 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 santosha. Lajita ila prabhu janani dosha. Lajita ila prabhu janani dosha.
What did you?
Tabe sachi kole kare kare la santosha.
Tabe sachi kole kare kare la santosha. Lajita ila prabhu janani dosha.
Tabe sachi kole kare kare la santosha.
Tabe sachi kole kare kare la santosha. Lajita ila prabhu janani dosha.
Tabe, at that time, Sachi, Mother Sachi Devi, Kole, on the lap, Kari, taking, Karaila, made, Santosha, pacified, Lajita, shamed, Haila, became, Prabhu, the Lord, Jani, knowing, Nija, his own, Dosha, fault. Translation, then Sachimata would take her son on her lap and pacify him, and the Lord would be very much ashamed, admitting his own faults. Purport. There is a nice description of all the faults of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his childhood in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi-lila, chapter 3, where it is said that the child Lord used to steal all kinds of edibles from the houses of neighbouring friends. In some houses he would steal milk and drink it, and in others he would steal and eat prepared rice. Sometimes he would break cooking pots, and if there was nothing to eat but there were small babies, the Lord would tease the babies and make them cry. Sometimes a neighbour would complain to such a mother, "My child is very small, but your child puts water in the ears of my child, making my child cry." Om Agyanatimirandasya Jananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmei Shri Guruve Namaha Durga Me Parimendasya Skalatmati Gatimahur Swakripa Yustu Dhanena Shantu Shantavalambanam. So by the mercy of Dandakaranya Prabhu, I sort of was asked to give class because I didn't know that Prabhu was coming. I spent an hour and I jotted down a few notes, and I left my notes at home, so I'm just completely depending on the Supreme Lord to try and remember something what I was saying. But this is rather a prolific 2 verses here where we're just talking about this naughty child, and he's a precocious child, and by normal standards, precocious child is sometimes very, very difficult to handle, and they cause great distress to everybody here in the material world, and pretty soon the community who suffers at the hands of such a child very quickly approaches the parents and says, "What are you doing? Try and rein in your child." So normally that child is brought to some sort of order very quickly, and peace is established in the community once again. So here we have the same symptoms of a child here, but this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is really strange, actually, because if you think about all the other different incarnations of the Lord and the 10 avatars and all the other different amsas and swamsas and vibhutas and what have you, you'll never see such a behaviour in the personality of Godhead. Usually, like, people take the example of Lord Ram, the perfect God-like, a perfect human being like God, right? He acted just like the perfect king, the Raja Rishi. It was always well behaved. You never hear of this type of thing. So where is this coming from? And what really, really strikes me about this is like the determination of the Lord to actually keep on going. It's not like there is a chastisement and then there is some restriction, but no, it's all straightforward, and the Lord is completely enjoying the pastime of this activity, and that is sort of a strange activity to be engaged in, even for a young boy, because the Supreme Personality is all-knowing. On one hand, in the Bhagavatam, we're reading about the Mahapurush, how he creates all this, Virata Purush, how he creates all this material universe, and the universes are coming out of one of his incarnations, Lord Vishnu, and then we all take birth in this material universe in a very elaborate fashion, and it's all under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet on the other hand, this boy is determined to create, this child is determined to create complete chaos in the whole neighbourhood. So we can understand this because it is different. This is the pastimes of spiritual pastimes of the Lord. And it is under the dictation of Yoga Maya. And it seemingly is like the Lord's overcome by Yoga Maya himself, that he is determined to perform these pastimes, and we can understand that it's actually to give pleasure to the devotees, because we know that whenever Lord takes birth in Krishna Lila or Caitanya lila, his devotees come with him and the demigods are invited, so all these special people are there. And so Lord wants to engage all these people somehow. It's just right from childhood he's doing these things. He's going into the houses of all these gopas, the gopas and the gopis, and he is performing the same pastime as he does in Krishna Lila and as he does in Chaitanya Lila. It sort of crosses over. So in Krishna Lila, Krishna is, as soon as he can crawl, he's creating mischief. You see that lovely picture. I don't think we've got it up here, but there's one of my favourite pictures where he's standing on a couple of boxes and he's reaching into a pot and he's grabbing the curd out of the pot and he's giving it to all the monkeys on the ground there, and the monkeys are looking up and he's got his hand in the pot and Mother Yasoda comes round the corner and busts him, right? And he's got this look on his face. So that is the determination. And what is that determination? Is that he wants to give pleasure to all his devotees. So first of all, he creates chaos. So we all have had some sort of experience before where if we've had children and we've come into our house and we see that our house is trashed, you know, like, it's a mess that the kids have come through and just run riot. It's a bit of a shock, what to speak of the gopis, that Krishna does a proper job, that, like it's said here with Nimai also, Nimai Pandit, that first of all they look for something to eat. And then they eat something and accidentally they might break a few pots, or if they can't find anything to eat, there's willful destruction. And after that, then if there's any child lying around, they'll pinch their toes, or as it is said here, he pours water in the ears of my baby. I've never heard that before, but this is the creativity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that evokes some emotion, and that emotion is that of, it's a pastime actually, that's the emotion of anger and stealing. So because it's here in the material world, it's also there in the spiritual world, but it's carried out in the spiritual world in the loving exchange, whereas in the material world the anger becomes retribution, we have to do something about this, or stealing, that the propensity within the human being to steal, even though up to the age of 5 it is said that the child is not subject to the karma of whatever he does. Still, that stealing propensity in the material world creates some dissatisfaction. So the gopis and the gopas, they have this temporary dissatisfaction with the fact that their house has been trashed, or what they've been trying to make, just like the sweetmeats and the rice preparations, they've elaborately prepared. But in that situation, in Krishna Lila, that preparation has gone on with the intent of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. With Krishna was going to be the subject of the offering anyway. He just preempted them and took it before they were ready to offer it. But the same action was still there, that Krishna ate the offering with great pleasure and enthusiasm in such a sort of manner, which creates another type of Leela. So all these people, they come to the house of Mother Yasoda, and there's Krishna sitting on the lap of Nanda Maharaj, and Nanda Maharaj is patting his head, and all the groups come in, that your son did this, and he pinched my baby's toes, made him cry, poured water in his ears, and then after a while, all that emotion that they have pent up, that anger and all that is just changed just by looking at the personality, just looking at the face of Krishna, because he's the most beautiful person. He's smiling and he's smiling at them, and they become charmed and completely enamored by the Supreme Person there, that in the form of a baby, so the form of a small child. because that's one of Krishna's qualities that goes beyond all the demigods. It goes beyond all of his incarnations. Even Lord Vishnu has only... even Lord Vishnu lacks certain qualities that Krishna has. There's 4 special qualities, and 2 of these here are exhibited. First of all, that Krishna performs these extraordinary pastimes even when he's a little child, and secondly is that his beauty is unsurpassed. It's so amazing that even Lord Vishnu contrives to see Krishna in his original form when he comes to the material world. And Krishna is so amazing that he can perform these pastimes and at the same time eliminate the demons, which is this other pastime that he has here in the material world. We spoke about that in the last sloka here, which is sort of more or less in the same context as what we're speaking about now. Is that Krishna in his baby form, even though he's so beautiful, he attracted the great witch Putana, which it is said could defeat any army that we have in the modern material world today. This is in the words of Radhanath Swami. And she was so devastatingly powerful that she had enough poison on her breast to poison 10,000 elephants. And then she gave a breast and put in Krishna's mouth, and with his little fingers he's sucking in the breast there, and he's sucking away and sucking away. Not only did he suck the poison, but he sucked the life airs out of Putana, and she turned back into this ghastly demon, comes running out in the village and comes crashing down upon Kamsa's best orchard. So day after day, Krishna was able to give pleasure to his devotees in so many different ways, and at the same time fulfill his other function that he has of eliminating all the demons and re-establishing religious principles. So where are we here? No. Fighting and still in the material world. So in the material world here, we are limited. So we need this order, that we need to have peace in the barnyard, so we speak. So we teach principles to all the children. I remember a lot of the times when I was young, some of my early pastimes was when my early memories of my childhood was when I was very, very young, and something untoward happened to me, or I did something untoward towards somebody else, and it was contained very quickly. I remember one of my pastimes is I had a friend, or one of my early memories of my childhood. It's not a pastime, but I was just drawing away very, very innocently there, and there was a pair of scissors there, and this child, I was 2.5, he was 2, he just picked up the scissors and stabbed my hand with them. I go, what? And of course that action got contained very quickly. And then another memory I have, I was very young, and we used to draw water from a well in the early days. We didn't have running water, we had well water in the country there. And my mother would be drawing the water from the well and have the bucket on the top, and it just so happened that the handle, which was a steel handle, was up at the top, right? And I was just standing there, and she had her head underneath drawing the water, and just naturally I was wondering what would happen if I just pushed the handle, see what would happen. Of course the handle came down right on top of her head with a big clunk. She's going, child, what have you done? So, of course, I didn't do that again, and that other action didn't happen. But with Krishna, it seems to have this inbuilt determination to carry on. And that determination is there. It's almost like you can say he's covered by the Yoga Maya just as the other people are covered by Yoga Maya. They don't know who Krishna is, and his Yoga Maya is that he wants to give pleasure to all his devotees. And in his childhood form, it's a pastime of parental affection. Just like when the people come and they're going to complain about that little boy, and they see that little boy and their heart melts, and they see him as their son. So that's just an exhibition of one of the rasas that Krishna has, that of parental affection. And of course, in the sampradayas that we have, there's 4 different sampradayas. We represent one, the Brahma, Gaudiya, Vaishnav Sampradaya, where we actually worship Krishna in his entirety, in all of his rasas, and we understand that Madhura rasa is the highest rasa of all. But one of the sampradayas, is it the Rama Kumara Sampradaya, one of the other 3, they stop at Bal Krishna. They just have baby Krishna there, and they worship baby Krishna in his form, transcendental form, and his pastimes there. And for them, that is the sum and substance of the worship of a Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, if you go to some of the householders in the Indian community, you will see Bal Krishna. Almost certainly you will see him. He's either on the altar or he's somewhere else. And that worship of that deity form of Krishna is going on. So there's that. So that's the relationship. It's a high relationship. Of course, the first relationships that are there are those of awe and reverence, where there is not really a relationship, just one of reciprocation with the Supreme Lord, that the Lord, we show gratitude to the Lord for his creation and our maintenance, and then by that performance of that action, then the Lord supplies abundance. So that is there in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 10. It says, in the beginning, the God created men and demigods, and by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, which we know as ritualistic oblations and prayers to demigods, who are the agents for the Supreme Lord, then everything will be supplied, everything that is necessary for abundance for human beings will be supplied to this earth. So that is a process that is going on through most of the different religions that be formed today. So that's the first, the awe and reverence. The second one, the first one, of course, is Shanta Ras. So Shanta is that neutrality where maybe you know of the existence of God, but you have no reciprocation with God at all. Sometimes people say nature is beautiful, it's God's abundance, but then they don't understand how to relate to that in the form of God's abundance. But what they are seeing is just the beauty of the Lord's material world. You're not going to actually reciprocate with the Lord by hugging a tree or doing other things like that, because that's just the Lord's inferior energy. You have to actually go beyond the material energy, understand the spiritual nature of the Lord and nature of ourselves. Of course, second one is, as I said, awe and reverence. The third one is friendship. So that comes a little bit later. So even Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, in his pastimes here, we can see that it's a bit different from Krishna, from what we understand about Krishna, that his pastimes were a little bit more of opulence, that King Nanda Maharaj was the king, and there was a lot of opulence in the village of Vrindavan. They had unlimited milk, unlimited curd, unlimited yogurt. In fact, they would celebrate one particular day where they would have a yogurt fight. So the whole village would be involved in splashing yogurt all over each other. So we can see the abundance that was there. But in Navadvip, where Lord Chaitanya was born as Nimai Pandit, means born under a nim tree, it was a little bit sparse there. That there was an abundance there in one form, but there wasn't really so much available. But the Lord still went to the houses of all the different brahmanas, and he found what he could, and he engaged in that exact pastime as Krishna did in his baby form as a small child. But when Sri Caitanya grew up and he had friends, he would also engage in different capricious pastimes that in the sloka before is saying that he would go to the banks of the Ganga and he would create havoc there, and he'd get the legs of the go on while the brahmanas were chanting the mantras in the water. He would swim under and he'd pull them under. He'd grab their legs and pull them under. And the young girls, they would be making so many different sacrifices to the goddess Caitanya to get a good husband, and he would come and spoil the sacrifice. He would either eat them or throw sand on them. He said, "I'm your husband, I'm your husband," and they would become so offended. But then everybody had that attraction for him at the same time. But still, Krishna, in his Nimai, in his form as Krishna, he used to harass the Mayavadis also, who had that philosophy, because actually at that point in time Navadvip was saturated with impersonalism and Mayavadi philosophy. So that was his intention, just like Krishna was killing all the demons that were really it was outright war between Krishna and the demons. This particular Leela, as the Nimai Pandit, was to ultimately eradicate the demonic mentality of all the people within the Dweep. So later on, as you become Nimai Pandit, very expert in all the grammar and language, and you become a teacher in Sanskrit, he would be respected. Even in his youth, he was a young boy and he defeated the greatest scholar in the whole of Bharat, vast whole of India, Kashmiri Pandit, and he had this beautiful reputation, and he would still go to the houses of all his devotees. He made sure he went to all the houses, and he would go to the house and or he'd go to the shop of a stall shop of the one of the inhabitants in Navadvip, and you say, "Oh, that's very, very nice flower garlands that you're making. What are your best flower garlands? Can you sell them to me?" And he was so beautiful, dressed so wonderfully in his robes, a scholar, he'd have books under his arm, and it'd be so enchanting that the person would just put the garland around, the best garland he had. And they were very nice sweets. "Have you got some sweets I can take home?" They would give him the sweets. And that is very nice cloth here. What's your best cloth? So he would engage everybody in some pastime so they would have some reciprocation with him. And then later on, when he was initiated by his spiritual master Keshav Bharati, when he was initiated by his spiritual master Ishvarapuri, and he became completely enamored by the chanting of the holy names, and that was the start. That was the beginning of his real purpose, his real mission in this material world, is to knock out that philosophy of Mayavada's and impersonalism. And he would go through Navadvip and he would engage all these people, all these babies, all that they grew up into young people, and all these people became householders or merchants or whatever. He'd engage everybody in Navadvip in the process of chanting the names of Krishna. He had so much of a following that in Navadvip, when the Kazi broke the drum of a Sankirtan party, he said, "No more chanting, no more chanting. Otherwise you'll be put away." So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became so angry at this that he organised a civil demonstration, and he said that there were hundreds and thousands of people that took part in that demonstration. They all lit up torches, and the whole road was just covered with people who went to the house of the Chandkazi, and he was so fearful. And so this is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but it didn't interfere with his determination to actually enjoy his pastimes as a Supreme Lord. So Mother Sachi has got him on the lap there, and she's saying, "Why are you doing this? And you shouldn't do this." And when she chastised him, he became more angry because he became more determined. As soon as she chastised him and locking you in the room, so he'd trash the room, he'd break all the pots and whatever, and she become even more sad. So that was actually to increase his loving pastime with his mother. So then she'd say, "What child, what is your problem?" And then he'd feel remorse and guilt, and as we read here, then Sachimata would take his son on the lap and pacify him, and the Lord would be very much ashamed, admitting his own faults. So all these emotions are there, but there's spiritual emotions that he's experiencing here. So whatever the emotions that are there in the spiritual world are also here in the material world, but because in the material world we're all contaminated by the three modes of goodness, passion and ignorance, then there is other retribution with the pastimes with the actions that we perform. But the Lord's actions are on the spiritual platform meant to enhance the love and affection of all the devotees. I just finished with a story here. Let's have a few moments. One of my favourite stories about Krishna's determination to actually perform these activities, that he become very, very capricious. So when he was, I think some of you might have heard the story, it's a very beautiful story about how he was determined to raid all the houses of the gopis. So the gopis were quite aware, the elderly gopis were quite aware of his activities. So sometimes they would safeguard their larders and all the pots of yogurt they had hanging in the trees, hanging from the rafters, and they would try to make sure that Krishna wouldn't get in and steal and trash what they had. So there was one particular house that was really, really secure. They had these little conches, little blinds of conches that went down in each doorway. So if you just slightly moved the conch, it would start to rattle and alert everybody to the fact that somebody was there. And they had the larder in a very dark place, and Krishna was eyeing it off. It's the only place he hadn't been to. And he was talking to Mother Mangala. He said, "I've got a plan. We're going to raid that house." And Mother Mangala is his best friend. He's a bit larger than Krishna, and he loves laddus and all the other sweets, so he's got a big round belly. So he's rather a character. He's Krishna's favourite friend. And Mother Mangala says, "When you have a plan, I'm always the one who gets into trouble with your plans, right? So I really don't want to hear it." Krishna says, "A lot of laddus involved here. You can have as many laddus as you like, this many laddus." And then Mother Mangala thinks, "Oh, yeah, well, all right, okay, let's do it. I don't know, but let's do it." So Krishna's plan was that he was going to raid the larder. Of course, he's conceiving, they got all these sweetmeats and everything. We're going to really find a big hoard and big stash there. So him and Madhu Mangala go tiptoeing to this house, and because Krishna's the Supreme Personality of God, and then he talks to all the living entities, he can even talk to stones and whatever. He makes a deal with the conches, little conch shells there at the blinds. He said, "Please just keep quiet as I come in." So he parts the curtains, and the conches are all quiet, and they come tiptoeing through and they find the larder and they open up the larder and there it is, all this pile of sweetmeats and ladus and everything there, and the best curd is up at the top there. And Krishna is just about to feast on all of this when all of a sudden all the conches start ringing and all the doorways ring, 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 and there's a certain, then the gopis, what's happening? Someone's here. Oh no, someone's in the larder. They go running to the larder and there's this little window in the larder there. So Krishna jumps out through the window and he said, come on, Madhumangala, come. And Madhumangala tries jumping out through the window because he's so round, he gets stuck in the window, right? And so the gopis find him and they're pulling on his feet to try and get him out. And Krishna's pulling the other way, right? So there's this tug of war going on with Madhumangala. And finally Krishna pulls him, he goes plop, and he comes out and they run away, right? And Krishna's sitting there and he's wondering, what happened? What happened? I made a deal with these conch shells that they're supposed to keep quiet and they didn't do it. Why is that? So he goes back to the house and he asks the personification of conch shells. He said, why did you all start ringing when I was there? Well, I said, you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so whenever you're having a meal, we always ring the bell. So it started sounding off. So anyway, Krishna had these wonderful pastimes there, and that is the nature. So we can understand, but what we take from this is that all the emotions that are here in the material world are there in the spiritual world. So it's just a question of our bhakti that we engage in Krishna's service, and we understand the nature of Krishna, how these transcendental pastimes reflect upon us, and how we can meditate on Krishna and his different pastimes, and we understand our activities in the material world, and we use this as a platform for higher taste to develop that spiritual attraction, that we have this natural attraction for making that connection with Krishna. It's all there, all the emotions are there, and we just spiritualize our life and make ourselves Krishna conscious. That's the purpose of life, to understand our real relationship with the Supreme Personality of God, and we don't have to worry about anything else. Thank you very much for listening. Does anybody want to make a comment or ask any questions? Yes.
Thank you for the class. You were mentioning how when the Lord is mischievous, then it's actually his pastime. So in the world that we live in the material world, when a child is up to mischief, and we saw also in the Lord's pastime, the parents were correcting him that he's doing something wrong, and he became angry. And we see also the children these days, or any time, but they get angry with the parents, but still it's the parents' responsibility to correct the child. I was remembering that pastime, Prabhupada was saying that there was a child who was raised by his aunt, because his parents died, and he was up to no good, but his aunt never corrected him. And then he came to the point where he was an adult and he was convicted with the death sentence. And then he was requested his last wish, and then he said, I want to speak to my aunt, and then he said, come closer. And he wants to whisper in the ear, get a bit of her ear, and she said, why did you do that? And he said, because you never corrected me. So I was just thinking that about that it is the responsibility of the parent, or even I guess a community member who has the position to guide her. Otherwise, I think they will be implicated if they don't. But if is that correct? That if they do correct the child or a community member, and then if they still go and do whatever they want to do, then the person who instructs is not culpable for the actions of the person.
Yeah, we're in a very difficult situation here in the 21st century where, we have to be very careful with children these days, but if we do see some untoward behaviour, then we usually notify the parents, or sometimes, I know you're a school teacher, so it sort of goes back to the school that, just the child's behaviour, so sometimes the correction might happen at the school. So, but it can be limited. It's like Krishna was unlimited in his desires to react with everybody. Normally in in the child of something, they might do one or two things wrong, but it's not like a whole. They're not all we don't see them as all being that's all they want to do, or they're all bad. So sometimes we put that connotation. It says here, actually, I'm just reading this, in this material world also, small children without enmity or bad will sometimes go to neighbouring houses and steal. Sometimes they fight. So that's just sometimes, right? It's just every now and then we have to correct that behaviour. So I suppose the point in this sloka is that Krishna was totally absorbed in doing that, but it was on that spiritual platform. So as far as chastisement goes, what we do on the farm here, if somebody's misbehaving, just like I've experienced that a lot in the pond, the kids have pond pastimes here on the Sunday feast while the parents aren't looking. So then we advise the parents and ask the parents, what are you going to do about it? So it is the parents' responsibility to correct that behaviour in whatever manner they see fit. So that's the best I can say. Thank you very much. Yes, Prabhu.
In regards of Krishna's pastimes, Prabhupada always pointed out, particularly with the gopis, that this is not mundane. He always would, strongly emphasize that. And when we hear these pastimes, what is the best way to maintain that understanding that this is not mundane? I mean, because other kids also do stuff and they may be cute and, oh, it's so funny and things like that. But how to maintain that line of understanding that this is not mundane, this is transcendental.
The gopi lila, you mean? No, just all the transcendental lila.
Yeah, this little childhood pastimes.
Yeah. So, well, it's just we understand that actually Krishna's trying to increase, I was referring to the fact that he's trying to increase that rasa of parental affection, that he's creating the turmoil where somebody actually feels this emotion of anger and, retribution or whatever. And what we understand from that is actually a spiritual emotion, but that's on that spiritual platform. But in the material world, what we have here it's a total different concept. So normally we would think, oh, well, why is he being such a bad boy? So the explanation is that he's actually creating a further rasa with all the people that are there. We have to understand that this is a pastime, that all the people took birth from demigods and from, his other associates there, pure devotees. So it's in Bhagavad Gita, Jamna Karma Chatta Made Divyam, that is the thing, one who understands the nature of my pastimes and activities does not have to take birth in this material world, but takes my eternal abode. So this we have to work on. And ultimately, that's why the Bhagavatam leads to the 10th canto, where we understand Krishna's most intimate rasa. This is just this is like a parental type of rasa, but the ultimate rasa, Madhura rasa, is it's easier to misconstrue if you haven't got your material desires under wing, and you hear about Krishna and his wonderful pastimes, that it is very, very relishable, but at the same time very easy to misconstrue if you're not actually on that path, on that spiritual platform where you can understand the nature, the transcendental nature of Krishna's activities. So it's just a question of purification, getting rid of the contamination, this material of the gunas, become purified. We can understand according to Bhagavad Gita. Thank you very much. All glories to Prabhupada.